Shelia Eddy, how do you plead to the offense of murder in the first degree, the felony charge in count 3 of the indictment in this case?
Guilty.
The record will reflect that the defendant has entered a plea of guilty to the offense of murder in the first degree, the felony charge in count 3 of the indictment in this case.
Now that we have come to this place and time in the proceeding, I can state without hesitation or reservation that all concerned must know and understand that Shelia Eddy, my client, and her family recognize that the Neese family is in a constant state of despair, loneliness, and sadness as a result of Skylar's death. For that, Shelia Eddy and her family are and will be eternally sorry. These proceedings are now coming to a close. With this conclusion, we hope that all families, the Neese family, most importantly, the Eddy family, and the Michaud family, all tragically affected by the actions of Shelia and Rachel, resulting in Skylar's death, can move forward in a more peaceful and hopeful way.
Ms. Eddy, at this time, I would advise you of your right to allocution. That is your right to make any statement that you might wish the court to consider before it passes sentence in this matter. Do you have anything that you wish to say at this time?
Your Honor, I can, on behalf of my client, she asked that she be permitted to remain silent.
I'm Marcia Skylar's aunt, Mary, Neese's sister. And, you know what, I don't know what in the world would ever make somebody feel the need to have to kill someone in this world over anything. Nothing could be that tragedy that you couldn't work out without having to kill them. She's taken hopes and dreams from my sister, from the prom to graduation to being a grandmother and planning a wedding. She'll never have any of this. And she's tore so many families apart that everything she gets coming to her, I feel, is due to her. She came and she acted as if she knew nothing. She pretended like she was her friend and stayed and comforted us and swore she had no idea what was going on, and the whole time she knew. And to sit there and look at us and tell us she knew nothing, and now come to this day and she admits that she did, just shows how evil she can be.
My name is David Neese, and I'm Skylar's father. I'm here today with my wife, Mary. I speak to you on behalf of my daughter because she can't be here. On July 6th, she made a decision to leave our house, go through a window, and supposedly go with two friends, and I use that term. I'm sure you know what I mean. When we learned that she was missing, we immediately went to the Star City Police who couldn't do anything with us, so they just listed her as a runaway. Since that date, my wife's life has drastically altered. We're no longer a family. The person sitting before you, Skylar's so-called friend, took her away from us without any remorse or feelings. You can look into the eyes of those who are responsible, but you can never hear what they heard as they were taking her life. You can see the faces of the killer, but you can't see Skylar's face. You can never understand the fear that she must have had as they took a knife and ended her life. You cannot imagine the pain that Skylar must have felt and the pain that Mary and I now feel. Your Honor, Skylar deserves to be heard today.
On the night of July 6, 2012, Skylar Neese disappeared forever. It became known that Skylar had last been in the company of her two best friends. One of them, Shelia Eddy, had been friends with Skylar since grade school. The other, Rachel, was a friend of Laura's recent vintage. The investigation after that by police covered much ground and varying theories as to why Skylar had disappeared and how and when she might be found. Because Shelia Eddy and Rachel Schoaf were known to have been with Skylar on the night of July 5th, 2012, they were questioned by police a number of times during the ensuing months. They repeatedly claimed to have left Skylar at a location near her home and repeatedly disclaimed any further contact with her. Their agreed-upon story held up until late 2012, when Rachel Shope's story added a piece that Shelia Eddy's story had not caught up with yet. Skylar's remains, and mind you, not her body, but remains, were finally recovered in mid-January 2013. The reason for that was that on January 3rd, 2013, Rachel Shope finally agreed, after securing her own benefits, to tell the truth about Skylar's demise. She also drove with police on that date to show where Shelia Eddy and she had left Skylar's body that night in July. The truth that Rachel Shope disclosed about this horrific and vile crime included these things. Shelia Eddy and Rachel Shope had begun to distance themselves from Skylar. They had begun to fear that their friendship would dissolve. And if that were to happen, Shelia and Rachel worried that Skylar would divulge their secrets, the kind of secrets perhaps that girls have, and other things. The conflict grew between them over time, or at least in the minds of Rachel and Shelia. And during that time, Shelia and Rachel discussed methods of getting rid of Skylar. And then came the summer of 2012, after Shelia returned from a week at the beach in June of 2012, when Skylar had accompanied Sheila's family. Shelia told Rachel of her continual quarreling with Skylar during that trip at the beach. And the desire between Rachel and Shelia to rid themselves of Skylar intensified. So they made a plan to pick up Skylar after her work on July 5th, 2012, and to kill her. To carry out this plan, they armed themselves with kitchen knives concealed beneath their clothing. And they brought a shovel and clean clothing for themselves, or when they were finished. After they picked up Skylar, they drove to a location with which they were familiar from prior times of driving around and smoking marijuana. After the three girls were all outside of the car, at an agreed-upon signal, a countdown actually, those two girls, Shelia and Rachel, both stabbed Skylar to death. They stabbed her multiple times. Skylar fought back and attempted to run, but she was overcome by her attackers. They stood over her until her last breath. Shelia Eddy and Rachel Shope tried to bury Skylar, but they couldn't dig into the hard earth at that time. So they left her body and tried to cover it up with tree branches and other natural debris that was around the site. They changed to clean, unbloody clothing and returned to their lives. These murderers, however, must now pay a price for their depraved actions. Today, we ask you to sentence Shelia Eddy to life in prison, acknowledging that under our law and under this plea agreement, she will become parole eligible. But we are asking you today, Your Honor, here today, to sentence this defendant to adult prison for her very adult crime. And we're asking that she not be returned to juvenile services custody, as is a prerogative of the court. I would remind you that if Shelia Eddy is now 18, she is no longer an actual juvenile, an actual underage offender. If she were to have committed a crime now at the age of 18 years, a crime of murder or even a lesser crime, she would go to adult jail and eventually adult prison. And that's what we're asking for today. that is what is deserved for this extremely horrific and vile crime.
Except that I ask that you exercise your discretion in face of the request of the state that she be remanded to the adult jurisdiction of the Division of Corrections, that she be given a period of at least 1 month time period within which to remain in juvenile services custody before being transferred to adult jurisdiction. That's my only request. A very short period of 1 month. Obviously, you have the discretion to recommend a period until she's 21, but I believe a period of 1 month would give appropriate time for humane adjustment to the eventual transfer to that system.
Shelia Eddy, for your conviction of the offense of murder in the first degree upon your plea of guilty, it is a sentence of the court that you've been imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for the rest of your natural life, consistent with the requirements of the Constitution of the United States. That sentence is technically with mercy, which makes you eligible for parole after you have served 15 years. With respect to placement, it is the court's intention that the defendant be placed in the custody of the Department of Corrections as soon as a bed is available in a Department of Corrections facility. So everybody understands, it is the court's position that the defendant is not to be transferred into the regional jail system awaiting a bed at the Department of Corrections facility. Primarily because of the overcrowding that exists in the regional jail system. I think getting a little bit better in the juvenile side of the house until there's a bed available. So it is the court's intention that she go into the Department of Corrections custody as soon as there is a bed available in the Department of Corrections. Not if that's tomorrow, that's tomorrow. If it's 30 days from now, it's 30 days from now. Whatever it is.
All rise. Court's in recess. Please be seated.